All right, everyone, welcome to Session 1 of The First City, an Ironsworn Actual play. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest checking out Session 0. I guess it's not necessary. I mean, if you enjoy seeing the character creation process and also selecting our truths for Ironsworn, learning kind of how to play the game, I would suggest you check it out. And if you want to read along with what I'm going to be going through in this video, check out my Substack. The link is in the browser bar you see on screen. I haven't had this channel long enough to be allowed to put links in my YouTube descriptions. That's a rule that YouTube has. You can't put links in your description until you have an established channel history. If you've wondered why I don't just put links in the description, I keep telling you, oh, just look at the URL in the browser. That's why. So sorry about that. It's slightly inconvenient, but if you enjoy reading this stuff, hopefully it's worth it. Check out the Substack, like, subscribe, all that jazz. All right, so this is Session 1, and this is where we actually start to play the game. If you haven't played Ironsworn before, I'm going to try to go over the rules a little bit as they come up. Honestly, the system is fairly straightforward in my opinion, so hopefully you'll pick it up as we go along. All right, without further ado, let's begin. Just a quick reminder, in case you forgot, in case the details of character creation weren't engraved onto your heart. Lucia is a 19-year-old young woman living in the Havens. That's the region of the Ironlands she's from. She is descended from the Skulda, who, according to one of our truths, are the people who savagely invaded the old world, where people came from before they got to the Ironlands. As a result, she's an outcast from Ironlander society. She's ostracized, but hopefully she can get to a better place over the course of our campaign. All right, now for our character sheet. This is a custom character sheet that I created, so it's not going to look like the default Ironsworn character sheet. Lucia, her highest score is in Edge. She has decent iron, decent wits, and then low heart, low shadow. And her weapon of choice is the bow and arrow. And yeah, it's the start of the game, so she's at full stats, full health, full spirit, full supply, and default momentum. Her assets, to be honest, spoiler, won't come into play in this session, so we won't go over them too much, but you can see them right here in the video. And her background vow certainly won't come into play in this session, because it's an epic vow that is going to last throughout the whole campaign, so we are definitely not going to make progress in this first session. This first session is fairly short, honestly. It's just a nice, gentle introduction to Ironsworn, the game, and its various mechanics. So yeah, let's start. What I'm going to do is I have written out my session. I use solo role-playing games as just a really fun creative writing exercise. I play the game and then I write out my session report in prose to practice writing. I am going to read what I've written, but not to worry, game fans. We will also have mechanics. I'm going to narrate the story, but when a mechanic comes up, I'm going to tell you the result, and I'm also going to describe my thought process, like how I decided to incorporate the result of the dice into the story. It's a lot of rambling, but I think it'll be quite intuitive as we go. All right, so let's begin. And we are actually starting with a dice roll right away, an oracle roll. So I had the fun idea to unnecessarily complicate a very simple detail of the game. So I decided to start our game in a forest. So Lucia is going to start out in a forest. And so the forest needs a name. Now, in the Ironsworn rulebook, there are a bunch of names, like oracle tables filled with names you can give to settlements. And one name that I saw was Bleakwood, which sounds pretty fitting for a forest, right? I mean, forests are full of wood, so Bleakwood is a great name for a forest. But it's also a bit of a boring name, in my opinion. And also, it didn't really feel fully right. So the Ironlands is supposed to be this ancient land with this rich history. For example, the Ironlanders haven't lived there for very long. They've only been there for a few generations. Before the Ironlanders came to this peninsula, there were other peoples. There were like the firstborn and all sorts of other things. And so with that in mind, this forest, its name isn't really Bleakwood, right? Like that's like a modern name that the Ironlanders gave to this forest. So the forest must have a different name that the native peoples called it. And so that's why I decided to roll for a different name. I chose the elf names table because the firstborn are, I guess, elves. So yeah, I decided to give it kind of an elfin name. So I rolled a 31, and that gave me Kinzura, which, that sounds like a good name for a forest. What's interesting, though, if you think about it, is that this oracle table is for elf names, and so the intention is that the names are names of elves, like elf characters. So Kinzura is actually supposed to be the name of an elf character. So it's basically like we called our forest Robert, or George or something, which is a little bit weird, but that's okay. That's okay. We're just making this up as we go. It's all imagination, baby. So yeah, just go with it. It's all made up. It's not real. So yeah, the forest is called Kinzura, or Bleakwood Forest is the modern name. Okay, so I started out with a prologue, and my intention with this was to kind of set the scene. I'm heavily inspired by epic fantasy novels. Fantasy was my favorite genre to read growing up as a kid, and a lot of fantasy novels have these, I don't know what the term is, I don't know if it's epigraph or something else, but basically, you know them if you've seen them. It's where the chapter starts out with like a quote or like an excerpt from a book or something that takes place in the world of the story. And so it really grounds you in the world of the story and makes it feel real. Dune has a great example where the first chapter starts out with an excerpt from, I think it's like the Manual of Muad'Dib or something. And so it just makes it feel like, oh, this is a real place with real people filling this world. Yeah, I just think that stuff is super cool. So I wanted to do something similar with this story. So we have a prologue here, and here we've hit our first roadblock in this video series of ours because I feel very self-conscious to read this out loud. I'm actually okay reading the other stuff out loud because that's just like straight description and prose. But man, there's something about this prologue that hits a little different. It's a little vulnerable, like, but I'll try my best. I mean, why not, right? You gotta be brave to do anything in this world. 82 years after the fall. You remember, my daughter, what I've told you about Kinzura. There are creatures that dwell there who are older than the trees. Elder beasts born before the first legends were ever told and who will remain long after the last story has faded away. Are they dangerous, father, these elder beasts? Lucia asked. Only if you seek them out. They live in the very heart of the forest, my child, and that's hardly a place you would ever want to be. All right, well, we're past that. So, 82 years after the fall. So the fall for me, and man, keep in mind, anytime I describe something, a lot of these details I just made up. It's grounded in the lore of Ironsworn. Like, Ironsworn has a rich fabric of lore. Like Shawn Tomkin did an amazing job kind of setting like these foundational details for the world, but he also left plenty of gaps for the player to fill in, which is wonderful. And so I filled in those gaps for myself. And so a lot of these details you'll see, so like the fall, there's no fall in the Ironsworn game book. That's not a term that's used. I just made that up. I don't want to be confusing. I don't want you to be like, what's that? It's nothing. I just made it up. It comes from our imagination. Yeah, so the fall is what I'm calling the time when the old world was conquered by the Skulda. That's just what they call it. That's the catchy name that they call it. The fall happened a couple generations ago. So yeah, I just guesstimated 82 years was a good period of time. So yes, the fall happened 82 years ago. And so at this point, our main character is a child, and that's the prologue. And so when we start the story, she will be much older. All right, so now we're through with the prologue, and here is another Oracle dice roll. So I actually tend to be fairly Oracle light when I play solo role-playing games. I feel like if you use too many oracle roles, it takes away a lot of control from you over the narrative. I don't want my story to feel random. And honestly, the fun in solo RPGs for me is being able to craft a satisfying story while meeting the challenge of adapting to the dice rolls that I do make. So I hate saying do, like I do dice rolls. Because then you're saying do, which is, it's not dignified. So, but yes, I do dice rolls when it makes sense, when it's appropriate, but I try to minimize them. Instead, to kind of balance that out, what I'm going to do with these sessions is I'm going to do one oracle roll at the start of the session, and I'm going to use the action and theme tables in the Ironsworn rulebook. Those are two separate tables, and I'm going to combine them. So one dice roll gives me the action, and the other one gives me the theme, and I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to try my best to incorporate the resulting phrase into the story. It won't always mesh perfectly, but we'll try our best, and if we can at least tangentially get it in the story, that's perfectly fine with me. Okay, so in this case, for session 1, I rolled on the action and theme oracle tables, and I got reduce and secret. So reduce secret. So something about, well, reducing secrets. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I know how it goes because I already did this, but you'll see how it goes. Okay, so our story begins 93 years after the fall. So remember, our prologue took place 82 years after the fall. So this is 11 years later, and Lucia is 19 years old now. 93 years after the fall. Bleakwood Forest was a dense tangle of ancient trees straddling the border between the western side of the Havens and the eastern edge of the deep wilds. After those who soon came to call themselves Ironlanders first washed ashore on this continent, sea-soaked refugees from a burning land, they and their descendants traveled far and wide across the vast peninsula, laying claim to its contents by establishing settlements and imposing new names upon age-old landmarks. They called this forest Bleakwood, a grim epithet intended for an ominous place, but its native name was Kinzura, an elfin word roughly translating to home of the ancients. That's not true, I made that up. For Lucia, it didn't really matter what the forest was called. What mattered for her was that its primordial, shadowy understory and thick, overgrown canopy offered the sanctity of a chapel and the privacy of a confessional. Kinzura was where she went when she wanted to be alone, or at least more alone than she already often was. It was a place dark enough to hold her secrets. Alright, we're just setting the scene here. I really tried to incorporate as much Ironsworn lore as I could. So here you got the name of our forest, the modern name at least. You got a mention of the Havens and the Deep Wilds. Those are regions of the Ironlands. And here we are telling the story of how our ancestors came to the Ironlands. They were invaded by the Skulda, and so they came to the Ironlands as refugees. And now we're in Bleakwood Forest, which is a dense, dark forest. It was cold that day, with a damp stillness that hinted at incoming snow. But apart from that, there was a strange feeling in the air, a subtle wrongness that sent a chill up Lucia's spine. Standing stock still but holding her elmwood bow ready at her side, she slowly scanned the surrounding trees and strained her ears to hear something, anything, through the silence. Alright, so when you start your Ironsworn campaign, you're supposed to come up with something called an inciting incident. It's basically an interesting event that kind of kicks the story into motion. So this is me trying to set up our inciting incident. So Lucia is in the forest, and she feels that something is wrong. So what could that be? What's going to happen? So she senses that something is wrong. So here we're going to come to our first move. In Ironsworn, you make progress in the story by making moves. There's a bunch of different moves that apply to different situations. Basically, if your character is ever doing anything where the outcome is uncertain, a move would probably apply. So in this case, Lucia is trying to hear something through the silence. She's trying to figure out what's wrong. And so that, to me, calls for the secure and advantage move. And that's because we are assessing a situation through observation. So here we see our move notation. Basically, you roll your dice and you come up with an action score, and you compare that to your challenge dice. So on the left here, we have 5 plus 2 equals 7. So 7 is our action score. That comes from rolling a 6-sided die and then adding a modifier to it. The modifier changes based on what exactly you're doing. So for example, in this case, we're observing something, and so wits would come into play, like our intelligence or observational skills. If we had tried to do this move using some other action, it might have been a different stat that came into play, so like heart or edge or shadow or something. But in this case, it's wits, which for us is 2. So it's 5 plus 2 equals 7. We're going to compare that to our challenge dice. Our challenge dice were 2 and 3. 7 is greater than both of those. So we beat both challenge dice, which means it's a strong hit. If you beat both challenge dice, that's a strong hit. If you beat only one, that's a weak hit. And if you beat neither of them, then that's a miss. So a strong hit is very good, so good stuff happens. And in this case, because we got a strong hit, we get +2 momentum. And because we succeeded, narratively, Lucia should get some sort of benefit. So we'll see what that is right now. There, in the distance, the snapping of twigs and the crunch of leaves and other forest detritus being crushed underfoot betrayed the presence of an interloper. Someone or something lumbering through the trees, bereft of the natural grace of any creature that actually belonged there. Years of chasing elusive game across the hilly scrubland of the Havens had made Lucia quick, and she used this hard-won agility now to silently bound toward the source of the noise. As she got closer, she was surprised to see not a ruthless raider, but a young man, perhaps only a few years older than she, dressed in fine clothes, stumbling around and looking lost. Lucia stopped in her tracks before he had a chance to notice her. Alright, so we succeeded at our secure and advantage roll, which means that Lucia was able to detect the presence of some sort of trespasser in the forest. So she detected that, so she has an advantage over whatever that might be. The man's handsome leather boots, dark pants, and luxurious fur-lined coat provided a stark contrast to Lucia's practical but shabbier attire, and his soft features and blundering manner indicated an existence spent enjoying the comforts of town life rather than learning how to survive in the unforgiving wilderness. A lifetime's worth of harsh experience had hammered into Lucia a bias toward caution, but something about the young man's lanky frame and helpless demeanor told her that she didn't have much to fear. "You're a long way from the settlements," she called out while keeping her distance. The man whipped around to face her, his eyes wide with alarm. He had been startled at hearing an unfamiliar voice suddenly ring out from the surrounding woods. Upon seeing that the voice belonged to a young woman who looked no older than himself, his fear diminished, though a decent amount of wariness still remained. "I've lost my way," he called back, his voice unsteady with exertion and anxiety. Gentle but frightened eyes stared out at her from beneath a mop of messy, dark hair. "Oh, you guys, this passage is... this passage is kind of long, sorry. Well, I'm sorry to myself, because I have to read all of this now." "The nearest town is 4 leagues from here," Lucia replied coldly. "It must have been an incredible bout of misfortune that brought you so far from civilization." "I was traveling home after a visit to the hinterlands. I was accompanied by..." Here the young man faltered. "By friends," he recovered and continued on. "We were following the edge of Bleakwood Forest when we were attacked by bandits. They killed my friends. I fell off my horse and skipped by running into the woods." He looked at Lucia now with a spark of renewed hope in his eyes. "Can you help me?" he asked. "You are familiar with this area, are you not? Please, help me leave and get home." Lucia stared at him, thinking silently. She held an antipathy toward most Ironlanders. She did not consider herself one, though she'd been born on the continent the same as the rest of them. She had no desire to lend them any aid. And yet, her mother and father had not raised her to... Sorry, you guys. Her mother and father had not raised her to withhold help from those in need, and though her parents were now gone, and Lucia had little belief in any kind of afterlife, her heart felt an undeniable pull to do things that would make them proud. And so, after a few moments of tense silence, she responded to the desperate man. "I can help." "Oh, thank you," the man exclaimed, his exhaustion and anxiety giving way to gratitude and relief. "My family and I will forever be in your debt." Though Lucia felt little patience for the man's awkward bearing and naive disposition, she had to admit that he had a kind and honest face. Fate willing, perhaps she wouldn't regret her decision to help him. "What's your name?" she asked as he ran over excitedly to join her. Oh, and here's our name pool. I love this thing. So if you didn't watch session 0, or if you have forgotten, what I did was anytime we roll on the Ironlander names table and we don't choose a name, we're going to put that name into the name pool. That way we can use it later. So in this case, our name pool had 2 names, Pendry and Shekhar. For this character, I felt that Pendry would be a nice fitting name. So yeah, his name is Pendry. "Pendry," he gasped out before babbling on enthusiastically. "My home is a bit far from here, 4 leagues like you said, but if you'd be willing to accompany me, I would ensure that you received the warmest welcome, and..." "Hold on, shh!" Distracted as she had been by her encounter with this odd young man, Lucia had failed to keep her attention on the ominous feeling that had earlier chilled her spine. It had receded for a while, but suddenly it came back in full force, and Lucia's heart shuddered with fearful anticipation. All right, so once again, this situation is similar to our previous time when we did an Ironsworn move. Once again, Lucia is trying to observe her surroundings and figure out what is wrong because she has a bad feeling. So we're going to use the Secure an Advantage move again because we are assessing a situation through observation. And this time we got a 5 plus 2 wits equals 7. And that beats our 2 challenge dice of 2 and 5, which means we have another strong hit. Nice. So we get plus 2 momentum, and good stuff happens in the story, hopefully. Far away, but rapidly getting closer, Lucia heard the deep, rumbling roar of something terrifying and unimaginable. Stowing her bow away on her back, she turned to grab Pendry by the arm. "We need to run," she commanded. "Now!" They ran, fear and adrenaline spurring them faster than Lucia would have thought possible. But the frightful noise behind them came closer and closer. The trees echoed with the pursuing creature's feral and unfamiliar cries, creating an otherworldly din. A wayward tree root sticking up from the ground caused Pendry to trip, bringing the man to his knees. Lucia stopped and turned to help him, but the delay sealed their fate. Out of a nearby stand of trees burst a gigantic bear, at least 5 times the size of any bear Lucia had ever seen before. In a previous draft of this session, the bear was 10 times the size of any bear Lucia had ever seen before, because I wanted the bear to be huge, but I thought about it and it's like, man, 10 bears big, that's just too big of a bear, you know, it just doesn't feel feasible, you know? So, this time around, I made the bear a little more manageable, so it's only 5 bears big this time. All right. Out of a nearby stand of trees burst a gigantic bear, at least 5 times the size of any bear Lucia had ever seen before. Gnashing its teeth and roaring with rage, the awe-inspiring creature brought to Lucia's mind her father's tales about the elder beasts of the forest. Primeval and ungovernable beings who were older than the trees, mightier than magic itself, and more mysterious than the Ironland's most closely held secrets. And here's our bear now, Elder Bear. So I skipped ahead a little bit. Technically, I don't think the Elder Bear is a foe, because I think you need to enter into combat in order to have foes. But, you know, it's kind of obvious that this Elder Bear is going to be a foe. So, I decided to just present it as that. He has an extreme rank. Oh, he or she? We don't even know. Who's to say? We might find out later. I haven't thought about it. But yeah, let's just say he. Elder Bear has an extreme rank. Very powerful, very scary. And, in Ironsworn, combat is decided through progress tracks. So actually you count up when you do combat. But I figured that in terms of fighting other characters, it kind of makes more sense for them to have a health bar that decreases rather than a progress bar that increases, if that makes sense. Don't worry about it too much. It's intuitive. I think you'll see as we go along. Basically, this is the Elder Bear's health bar. Starts at 40 and hopefully, well, in general, hopefully you take it down to 0. But I mean, okay, I'll say no more. Since growing out of childhood, Lucia hadn't given much thought to the possibility of ever encountering an elder beast. If they were even real at all, her father had assured her that they dwelled only in the deep heart of ancient forests like Kinzura. Yet here now, inexplicably, was one in the flesh. This session is almost over, and we've only done 2 moves so far, and so I really wanted to get another one in there, which is why I did this. But looking back on it, I don't know if I would advise. I mean, I think it makes narrative sense to do this move at this point, but it's kind of harsh, as you'll find out shortly. So I figured this would be a very stressful event because, you know, imagine seeing something in real life that you thought wasn't real. That'd be pretty scary. Well, if the thing itself was scary, I mean, I guess if it was like a fairy or something, that wouldn't be scary. But this is a huge bear, so that's pretty scary. So yes, we're going to take the Endure Stress move because we are facing a mental shock or despair. So our action roll is 5 plus 1 heart equals 6. Our challenge dice are 5 and 6. So 6 only beats 5. 6 does not beat 6. You can't tie. So this results in a weak hit. And the consequence of that is that we lose 4 spirit. Ugh, and that is huge. That's 80% of our spirit. We just lost it. Oh my gosh. We start out with 5, we lost 4, so we're down to 1. So we are almost desolate. As I was saying earlier, I didn't have to do this, but I did want to make things more interesting, and also it did feel narratively justified to have her make this move. But yeah, certainly the consequence was kind of intense, so hopefully that won't come back to bite us later. Yet here now inexplicably was one in the flesh, and Lucia's heart, though resolute, quailed in fear at the sight of the monstrous beast. All right, that's it. Session 1 is over. Coming up next, here's our cliffhanger. In Session 2, we'll see whether Lucia can survive her encounter with this terrifying beast of legend. Yeah, Session 2, it's gonna be the bear fight. Get ready. That'll be fun. I've already started writing it. It's taking forever because I write very slowly, unfortunately. I'm hoping to get faster at it. I'm in the middle of writing that session out, so hopefully I'll get that out in the next week or so. But I think it's nice. That was what a great sell. I think it's nice. I think it's very nice, and I hope you'll enjoy it, and I hope you'll watch. So yes, please come back, like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you lasted this long, I hope this was entertaining, and I hope that you enjoy this campaign. So yeah, see you later.